Boom. 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 Let's just take a moment to get present. To come into the now. To let go of our stories, the labels, our to-do list, and just be present. Just experiencing the world as it is, as sensations. Not as stories, not as labels, not as interpretations, but just as stimulus. A sound, a pitch, a touch, a temperature. I can feel my right hand, my palm feels chilled. I feel my shoulders and back warm as I put the sweater on. I can hear gentle bubbling of the fish tank, dog barking in the distance, computer fan. Of course, I'm giving these labels, breaking the rule I just made, but I guess I could describe it as I hear, and I hear, whoa, 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 and I hear, just take it 1 second and notice what sounds and sensations you have in your world. Thank you, universe, for all of these sensations, all these gifts, this awareness. Help us to be in gratitude of this position of appreciation and consciousness. Help us to be loving vessels in the world. Amen. Welcome! Welcome to Hug Nation! Woo! Okay, so the topic of the day is life beneath the symbols. It's a pretty obscure and esoteric topic, and to be honest, I'm not sure if I can really convey it. It was like crystal clear in my head. Late last week, I was in a conversation with OT and Dimitri, and just was kind of ranting about scripts and symbols, and it just was so clear. And I've been trying to articulate it and write about it and share, and so we'll see. Come with me, will you? I was taught in college in a sociology class. I was told that the paradox of mankind was that we must be bound in order to be free, and that we have these limitless possibilities, but it is paralyzing. It is impossible to do anything when you have unlimited possibilities. The mouth can make an infinite number of sounds, but you have to limit those sounds into words and sentences so that you can communicate. Some say that art cannot exist unless you put limitations on it. In fact, often the greatest art is done when there are limits and confines put on the process and the materials. That's where the creativity is kind of, the pressure almost creates the diamond. And this happens throughout our world. I mean, so much of the things that we take for granted are these kind of limitations we placed on ourselves. A car can drive in any direction, but we created a system of you drive on the right, you stop at stop signs, you yield to the person that's on the left. All of these rules so that we can go much faster. We can, without any limitations, we can go crazy fast, but it will result in chaos and crashes, and in the end, slow things down. So in order to have the freedom of this traveling system, we have to put limitations on ourselves. That's part of a social contract kind of idea that we all agree to do certain things so that we can be more productive as a group. And there's societal agreements like this. That's the process of growing up, of socialization, is that process of learning what the rules are to the game. And they're everything from big things like you have to get a job and go towards home ownership in order to be successful. That's like a big rule that we kind of buy into. And then there's these small situations, rules, such as agreeing that this color is fuchsia. We call it fuchsia. We agree that that fruit that is this shaped and crisp is called an apple. And we agree that the color of that is called red. And so we have these limitations, these symbolic representations of things that help us to kind of organize the world. So then we can communicate much quicker. It becomes more efficient. And that is the process of socialization. Now, when you're a toddler, before this is happening, you experience the world much more intimately. I see white on top of blue. No, actually, I take that wrong. You don't know that there is a depth. You just see white patches and blue. You soon learn that those are clouds on the sky. And not soon after that, you stop seeing blue and white. You see sky with clouds. And even though your brain initially registers the blue and the white, the identification and labeling and seeing it as a symbol is instantaneous. And so as we grow, we start to just have an interaction with the world that is symbol-based. During the meditation, you notice that I was naming off the sounds that I heard, and I did it by symbol, even after I had just said, let's try to just identify the sounds. And I said, there's my fish tank. I didn't hear a fish tank. I heard gurgle, 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 and my brain saw a fish tank. I heard whoo, 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 and my brain saw a dog. Now, that's not an irrational thing to do. There's a really good chance that sound did come from an animal approximately this size covered in fur that we as a culture call a dog. But that is a very small example of that. What happens is that these symbols get put into systems of symbols, but put into more systems of symbols, and we actually end up living vast portions of our lives separate from the world, purely because we're having a symbolic understanding of things. Alan Watts talks about that the process of meditation, one of its main purposes is to help us re-experience the world intimately, to start to notice again what the sensations are before we label them as symbols. What is the feeling? What is the thought before it is shifted into a symbolic understanding of it? In fact, if you take an intro to art or intro to drawing class, the majority of the class is not teaching you how to draw. It is teaching you to relearn how to see. Because if you ever tried to draw like a flower or your hand, what you often draw is what you think a hand is. You draw the symbol of a hand. It's really cool to see kids do that because they're in that they are on the front lines just learning that symbol-based world, and so they draw exactly the symbol of what they think it is. This is a symbolic representation of the world. That's why their drawings of people and animals and everything is so just adorable, because it's the symbols. And in fact, Picasso, when he said that it took him a lifetime to learn how to draw as a child, to get to that point of once again being able to see that world from that raw or just freshly symbolic state. Now, this happens. It's mandatory. It's part. You have to do this. You living in a state of what's this, what's this, what's this, what's this. I mean, you would do nothing. You can enjoy that state during a period of time during a meditation, or when you're protected in some way. But you can't function in the world that way. So it's not. This isn't an evil process. In fact, it is necessary to interact with any sort of efficiency with the world. But what happens is the difference between all agreeing that this is fuchsia gets layered upon layered upon layered, and pretty soon you have these very abstract systems of what we just accept. This is fuchsia. This is what money is. This is what politics is. This is how food is. And the way things are, the way the world is, we just accept that the way the world is. In the same way we accept that this is fuchsia, and that is a dog. And that's what a dog sounds like. And that's how money is used. And we lose sight of the fact that that is a whole consensual, agreed upon social contract that we use to make it more efficient. And so the challenge comes, or the importance comes, in recognizing that we are deep in one of those scripts, deep within a story. So deep that it's very difficult to pull yourself out of it and see it as a script. The values of what you think is important, the values of what you think success is, the values of what... it is very difficult to look at, say, a homeless person and not have a judgmental feeling that, wow, poor them. But poor them because they don't fit within the script, the story that you have adopted wholeheartedly. Now, you could have all sorts of arguments. Well, they have to struggle for their food. They have to, they're dirty. Well, there's a lot of people around the world who struggle for their food, and they are dirty, and that does not mean that their life is any less pleasant or enjoyable or joyful or peaceful. But our story that we've agreed on says that this is the good, this is a problem. One of their first questions, when people they see my pink hair and then we start talking, they're like, "What do you do for work?" Because it's like, even something as simple as a shift in the appearance of my hair color, which clearly nobody would say that this would affect my ability to do work. And yet, many people say, well, what do you do for work? Because our work system has an acceptable script of what we've all agreed on is the way we do things. Some people actually... in fact, one of the reasons that I like having the pink hair is because it is this kind of neon sign saying, I'm questioning the script. Some people do it so, they just take it and light it on fire, burn the bridge of the script. Like when you see someone who has their face tattooed, and you're like, okay, what you've said is like, I'm not going to let this hypnosis of the script, no matter what, I'm not going to let myself get pulled in and believe that this reality is the only reality, because anyone who looks at me is going to push me away from the set story that we've all agreed on. Now, as I'm saying this, I'm already recognizing that I'm not articulating this well, but what I'm trying to get at is this understanding that, and this is a personal thing I've been going through lately, is that we get so into the story that we don't know what the choices are. We don't know that there are other options. We don't know that that so much of what we feel is actually part of the game. Playing the game is awesome. The game is great. But we have to recognize that it is a game. We have to know that our experience of the world is intensely personal. We, as individuals, agree to play the game. And then within the game, we have all sorts of pressures and anxieties and tasks and dues. But we should have fun with that, because at the end of the day, that's a game that we, the individual, have agreed to play with everybody else. We, the individual, at any time can pull back and go, I don't care anymore about the game. These game rules are in a second tier. The first tier is what I truly know to be true. And that is the way I feel the love I feel, the compassion, the connection I feel with people, my physical sensations, that is all real and absolute. The game that I sign up for is always a second tier. That gap between my real experience of the world and the game I play is so hard to push those apart enough so that you can see that there's a difference. But once you can work on that, it takes the anxiety of the game and makes it go whew. And if you can then take a step back into the purely personal experience, it can be so peaceful. And when the whole point of it all is to try to straddle the two and have fun in the game, but knowing that it is something that you are not wholeheartedly committed to. It's not absolute. It's like playing in a weekend soccer league, and you suit up, you stretch, you take it seriously, you practice, you play as hard as you can, and you get frustrated, and you get sweaty and dirty, and you play your heart out. But at the end of the day, and even if you get way too freaked out and stressed, you got to pull back and go, I'm here by choice. I wanted to play this game because I like the excitement of it. And that's what we need to do as we live, is go, look, I'm going for all of these goals because I like the excitement of it. I'm alive, right? If I'm getting to a point where starvation is at hand, that's a separate talk. But I don't know anyone who is at the edge of starvation. Comfort, perhaps, but starvation, no. And so everything else is part of the game. And we have to enjoy it from that place of knowing it. Now, there's certain things that you can do to kind of force that practice. One of the easy ones, not easy, take that back. One of the common ones is travel. The process of making symbols of our world is the process of taking things for granted. As you drive the same route every day, you stop seeing the things that are along the road. As you do the same processes, as I set up for Hug Nation, I stop even noticing things that I'm doing. Often I forget things that I should do. But travel is one of those things where, because all of the little details are different, you can't take things for granted, and you are forced to be present and notice. Like, oh my gosh, the curbs are a different height here. Okay, all right. The street lights work differently. Oh, okay. The coffee comes differently. Oh. And so things that you normally do just living by the script of the game, you start to actually notice. And does it slow you down? Absolutely. It is traveling in that sense of someplace that is different from what you're used to is a process of really slowing down and being present and having to notice all of these things. Now, quickly you get used to it, and you get into it. You find new scripts and new patterns. But that type of mentality and practicing slowing down to notice things is the process of trying to push that gap between the accepted script and the absolute experience of the world. One of the things that I love and that I think is the reason why people get so powerfully impacted by Burning Man is because it is a place where so many of these scripts are thrown out. New paradigms and new ideas and new patterns are introduced, and some things are just don't exist, and so you have to just kind of decide, oh, okay, well, this pattern, the script that I have, in the game that I've been playing my whole life, you stay clean. You shower every day. If you had dirt on you and you presented yourself in public, you would be ridiculed, mocked. You'd have to have some excuse. But in this realm, in this travel experience, in this now that you are in, you are allowed to be dirty. And that shift in the acceptable rules of the game means it's a new game, and so suddenly you go into different patterns. The pattern that we're used to in the game that we play in the default world, if someone approaches you outside of in the public, the chance of them having altruistic intentions is pretty small. They probably want your signature on something or want to sell you something. But the dynamic at Burning Man, because there is no commerce, if someone's approaching you, you don't have a script. So you go, well, what is the reason for this? I have to be present and actually experience this interaction. one of the goals in makinganybeat.com, plug, was trying to recreate that environment where if someone approaches you in a social media site and friends you that you don't know, what's their agenda? If they're following you on Twitter and you don't know them, they probably just took a social media marketing class. But if you try to eliminate those old scripts and patterns, or outlaw them, or shun them, or make them to be change the rules a little bit, you try to make it so those interactions can be fresh and new and be infused with a different motivation. The reality is that so much of what we consider the world to be is just agreed upon stories, or a grand agreed upon story that differs as you go between culture to culture. And you can look through history, and you can look into anthropology and recognize that it's not a constant. It changes as science changes. The story changes culture to culture. There are cultures where ownership is an unknown. You look through history, there are times when numbers were unknown. These things, the story shifts and changes. One of the real dangers of globalization is that the story is becoming all-pervasive, and it's becoming a single story that we all buy into. And so the idea of going outside of it is crazier and crazier. Crazy. There's two types of crazy. There's crazy like your brain hears hallucinations, and there's crazy, which means I don't like the story. I'm going to play a different game. And our culture labels that as crazy. One of the really cool things about the Occupy movement is that a lot of it is a process of saying, who made these rules? And that pulling back and going, wait a minute. These things that we have accepted as the way the world is are actually just a story. We've all agreed that this is how money works. But actually, it doesn't have to work that way. Or we've all agreed that this is going to happen in this way, or we've all agreed that politics works this way, or maybe we haven't even agreed. Often we've just consented, or we've kind of been born into something and never really known that it is something that can be questioned. If everybody is calling something fuchsia, why would you even think that maybe there was other words you could call it? But if you realize that every time you drink from a fuchsia glass, you're not allowed to drink the end of it, you might start going, well, can we call it something else? That was a horrible metaphor. And yet, I will continue. Oh gosh. I guess what I'm trying to say is that the game is awesome. The whole point of having human consciousness and having the ability to imagine, to forecast, is so that you can play these games. So you can go, all right, I'm going to try to build this. I'm going to try to save this. I'm going to try to create this. But the way to make sure that it isn't a process of pain and suffering is to not be attached to the outcome and not be attached to the game itself. Knowing that the whole purpose of the game is to dive in and have an adventure and enjoy the excitement of it. That's why you join a soccer league. It's awesome to win, but you join to play. It wouldn't be a fun game if there was no challenge. Maybe that's actually the kind of soccer league I would join. I think my favorite year I ever played soccer was the year I was on a co-ed league, and I was like the best player on my team because I was like a lot bigger because I was a boy. But anyways, the point is we got to practice stepping back, enjoying the game, and then centering and knowing that in the now, in this present, we are unaffected by the whatever scoring, whatever challenges, whatever anxiety is happening in the game. In the now, we have all our needs met. We are vessels of love. We are divine lights, and we can just sit in that, retreat from the game whenever we have to. So let's have ourselves a hug. Now the rules of the hug are, okay, I take it back, there's no hugs. I mean, there's no rules. Kind of having trouble speaking today. This is a new tongue. Just installed it. All right. So, grab yourself by the shoulders. And as you feel this body, there are elements of this that are truth, and there are elements that are story. Even the biology of our body is an understanding that science has given us. Certain things, sensations are truth. The story of how these cells and everything work, well, that's a story. And so in this moment we appreciate our truth, and we know that as we hold ourselves, we also hold the symbolic other of all the people that are outside of ourselves, and physically outside of ourselves. And we know that as we get into conflict with anyone else in the world, whether that is a physical conflict, whether that's an ideological conflict, whether it's just a person we may never have even seen or met, but we've seen them on TV or read about them, all the conflict is happening in that realm of the game, in that realm of the system of rules and disagreements about rules and disagreements about fair play. And we should play hard in that game as long as we can appreciate it and enjoy the process. Maybe in the moment it is stressful and painful, just like pushing yourself in a game in the last quarter of a soccer finals. It may not be pleasant in the moment, but it is rewarding, it is fulfilling, it is part of your purpose in that moment. And we need to go into all of our game of life adventures with that same kind of passion, with a detachment, with an understanding that at the end of the day our opponent is our brother, our conflict is by choice, and what we are at our core is perfect and pure, just like everyone else, no matter how caught up in their game they are. So for a moment, let's just feel that connection. Let's let the game dissolve. Let's just be present with ourselves, all those listening live, and all those who are tuning in vibration and intention, and just take a deep breath. On behalf of Grandpa Caleb and all the Love Warriors, happy Hug Nation. Thank you for being here, for shining your light, for being you, for playing this game. It's a lot more fun with you in it. Thank you. I love you. Namaste.